Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going deep on something pretty cool. It's called Knowledge Augmented Generation. You can just call it K-Key. It might totally change the way we find and use information, especially for professionals, So K-Key basically, it takes those large language models, the LLMs everyone's talking about, and combines those with the structure and logic of knowledge graphs. This deep dive is based on, a research paper, actually. It's called K-Key. Boosting LLMs in professional domains via Knowledge Augmented Generation. Quite a title, right? It's by Leilang Mengshu Sun and a whole team of researchers. So by the end of this, you'll totally get why KD is so important, especially if you're someone who wants to access information that is more accurate and relevant and just insightful,
It's really interesting how KK addresses some of the limitations we see with traditional methods that only rely on text similarity. Think about it. In professional fields, you need more than just documents. With similar words, you need precise answers and logical connections.
Right, it's like if you're a lawyer researching a case, you need to connect laws to precedents and facts, not just find articles with.
Similar legal terms, right?
Exactly. Traditional approaches struggle with that level of precision, especially when you need to understand the relationships between concepts, or like do calculations, for example. An LM might not be able to easily figure out which of two legal precedents applies to a case based on a bunch of criteria.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So how does KG solve this? The paper mentions knowledge graphs. I've got to admit, I'm pretty curious how those fit in.
Well, think of a knowledge graph like a giant web of facts, all interconnected. Instead of just words on a page, the information is structured. It uses what are called SPO triples. That stands for subject, predicate, object. So let's say you're in finance and you're researching a company and how they're doing financially. A knowledge graph could represent that company, its revenue, its expenses, and its profit all connected in a way that lets you make precise queries and calculations. So you could ask the knowledge graph specific questions like, what was the company's net profit in 2023? Or which companies in the same industry had higher revenue growth?
Exactly. And because the information is structured, KGs allow for something called deterministic inferences. This basically means the system can perform calculations, make comparisons, and do other logical operations directly on the knowledge, which is something LLMs struggle with when they're on their own.
Okay, I see. So KG combines LLMs, which are really good at understanding and generating language, with knowledge graphs, which are better at representing knowledge in a structured and logical way.
That's it. And the researchers, they've developed this framework with 5 key modules that all work together to make this happen. And one of the coolest parts is how KG makes this structured knowledge easy for LLMs to access. It's called LLM-friendly knowledge representation, or LLM-FIASPG for short.
Oh, that's a mouthful. Could you break that down a little?
Sure. It's a pretty clever approach. LLM-AISPG uses a layered structure. It's inspired by the DIKW pyramid. You might remember that from information science. It goes from data to information, then to knowledge, and finally to wisdom.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this could be helpful. So instead of giving the LLM raw data, K-Key organizes the data into these layers, making it easier for the LLM to understand and then to reason about the information.
Yeah. In this framework, the core knowledge graph is the foundation. It provides all those structured facts and relationships. Then there's another layer that extracts key information from the knowledge graph, making it even easier for the LLM to digest. And then finally, there's a layer that connects back to the original pieces of text, giving it all some context and nuance.
It's kind of like having a really well-organized research database. You can quickly find facts and figures, but you can also dig deeper into the source material if you need to.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. But KG does more than just organize. It actually connects the graph structure and those text chunks in a really interesting way.
So it's not just finding facts, but seeing how they all connect. How does Cargri do that? And what does it mean for us?
That's where mutual indexing comes in. Carry makes like a two-way link between the knowledge graph and the text.
Okay.
So you can start with a concept in the KG and find text about it. Or you can start with text and see how it fits into the KG.
Got it. So you see the bigger picture, not just a list of facts.
Right. It's about understanding. That's what makes KG different from just a basic search. And that brings us to probably the most impressive part of the whole KG framework. It's called the Logical Form-Guided Hybrid Reasoning Engine.
Wow. That sounds intense. How does that even work?
It's actually simpler than it sounds. Imagine trying to solve a complex problem. You wouldn't do it all at once, right? You'd break it down into steps. That's basically what this engine does. It uses logical forms. to break down a complex question into a series of smaller questions that can be answered using the KG. And by retrieving information from text,
Like a detective. Analyzing clues. To solve a case.
yeah, exactly. There are 3 types of operators it uses: planning, reasoning, and retrieval. Planning figures out the strategy for answering the question. Reasoning applies logic and rules to the KG. And retrieval searches the text for information.
And the paper has some examples of this.
Right. Yes, in Table 1 and Algorithm 2, they show how the system could handle a question, like what are the side effects of this medication for this condition? It would first find the medication and the condition in the knowledge graph. Then it would look at the known side effects, and then look for information in the text to give you a good answer.
What I think is really neat is that it can refine its answers over time.
Yeah.
Like it's thinking and learning.
Yeah. They call it the multi-turn solving mechanism. It's in Table 13. The system is asked about plague occurrences. It can't find the answer at first, so it asks itself another question to get more info.
So,
Then, using its memory, it finds the answer.
that's so cool. It's so like humans. It adjusts its approach based on what it learns. Okay, so we've talked about LLM versus PG. That's how Carrie organizes knowledge. And the hybrid reasoning engine. That's how it solves questions. What else is there?
The next module is all about accuracy. It makes sure it's retrieving the right info by looking at the relationships between different concepts. It's called knowledge alignment with semantic reasoning.
So it understands
Yeah.
that words can have different meanings and that concepts are connected, like synonyms and related terms.
Exactly. Like if you're looking up medical information and you search for cataract patients, this module understands that those patients are also visually impaired, so it will broaden the search and find more relevant info.
It's building a map
Yeah.
of all the concepts.
Right, and that leads us to the last module, the KG model itself. It optimizes the LLMs for specific tasks like index building and question answering.
So they're making sure the LLMs can do what KK needs them to do. It talks about natural language understanding and inference and generation. What does all that mean for someone who doesn't know much about AI?
Well, basically, they are training the LLMs to really understand the meaning and context of the information, and then draw conclusions from it and give you accurate and coherent answers. They use techniques like K-LORE and AKGF to make KG more efficient and adaptable to different fields.
So they're customizing the LLMs for KG, and it sounds like it's working. The KG model is much better than traditional RIDE methods.
Yeah, it is.
But I think it would be helpful to see how KG is being used in the real world.
Absolutely. The researchers highlight 2 applications, e-government Q&A and e-health Q&A.
Okay, let's start with e-government. We all know how frustrating it is to try to find answers. On government websites, how does KG make it better?
Imagine a system that could answer your questions about all those government services and give you clear and simple answers. That's what they're trying to do with the e-government Q&A system. They built it using KG.
So you could ask about eligibility or what documents you need.
Exactly. They gave it a ton of government documents and then used K to let people ask questions normally. And it was much more accurate than traditional methods.
That's great. Less frustration for everyone. Now, e-health. That's something I'm really interested in. KK could really change healthcare.
Imagine having a system that can answer all your health questions using a really reliable medical database. It could give you info about diseases, symptoms, treatments. It could even help explain test results.
Like a personal medical advisor.
Exactly, that's the idea. They used KGay to create a system for the Alipay Health Manager. They used a huge medical knowledge graph with over 1.8 million entities and 5 million relationships. Plus a bunch of medical texts. They even use something called DSL rules. They're like instructions for the system to calculate medical things.
So it could analyze symptoms
Yeah.
and figure out possible diagnoses.
Yeah. And it was really accurate, especially for medical insurance questions and general health questions.
It's amazing. But of course, this is still research. There's a lot of potential, though. But every new technology
Has its challenges. That's true. Yeah, one of the biggest challenges is the cost of computing. KGA can be pretty resource intensive, especially with those complex questions that need multiple steps of reasoning and retrieval. The researchers know this, and they suggest that for certain applications, like the e-government and e-health examples, you could use smaller, more specialized models to make it more efficient.
So it could be optimized
Yeah.
to be more practical. What are some other limitations?
Well, the planning stage needs improvement. It relies a lot on LLMs. And while LLMs are getting better at reasoning and problem solving, they're still being developed. So their ability to plan complex solutions is still kind of limited.
The paper mentions an example, where the system couldn't answer the question, who was older between these two people who have died?
Yeah.
It needs more than just their ages at death. It needs to understand that the question is really asking, who was born first?
Right. It's a subtle difference, but it shows that the planning needs to be better. But the researchers think that as LLMs improve, this will get better too.
So it's not a problem with the approach itself, just something that needs more work. What about the knowledge alignment? Any challenges there?
Yeah, especially with OpenAI. That's the technique for extracting information from text. It can be really helpful, but it can also cause inconsistencies or inaccuracies in the knowledge graph.
So it doesn't always understand the nuances of language perfectly.
Right. Even though the researchers have used semantic reasoning to try to fix this, we still need to make sure that the knowledge is accurate and consistent.
It shows that building these AI systems takes a lot of care and attention to detail. But even with those limitations, KGI is a big step forward in how we find and use information.
Definitely. There are so many applications. Like imagine KGI for legal research. It could help lawyers quickly find relevant laws and cases, analyze legal arguments, and even write legal documents.
Or in science, it could help scientists look at research from tons of papers, find new discoveries.
Exactly. The possibilities are huge. KGI could change how we use information in pretty much every profession.
It's not just a new technology, it's a whole new way of interacting with knowledge.
We're going from just searching for information to asking complex questions and getting precise answers from all the data out there.
It's pretty amazing. So think about how you could use KGI in your own field.
What problems could it solve for you?
What could you learn?
What new things could you do?
This is just the beginning. I'm excited to see what happens next. That's it for our deep dive into KGI. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.